So your logo may say something, and
Right.
then if your tone and your message is different, it's going to be disjointed and it's not going to be a solid brand.
Welcome to Kickin' It with Kapok. Today's episode is What is Branding and Why is it Important? To help us with our discussion today, we're joined by Teresa Mandala from Bella Design Studios. She is an artist and creative professional. Bella Design Studio is a virtual advertising studio. And before starting her own business, Teresa worked in advertising at an ad agency for 20 years. Teresa now helps clients with marketing, branding, and advertising. She's also an artist and an art teacher. Where should we go from there, Marilla?
Well, this is kind of a big deal episode. Branding is one of those things that we often talk to people about, clients, and especially local businesses. And it's one of those things that is often very, I guess, misunderstood and taken for granted because a lot of businesses assume that, okay, just we're too small and branding doesn't really matter to us. All I need to do is, go into Word and create a little logo for myself and put that logo on a business card, and that's it. And so sometimes it's kind of like an uphill battle to convince someone that they really need to care about their branding from day one. It's just something that is huge. Regardless of your size and industry, you need to stand out. And so I'm actually very, very excited about this. And
Yeah, branding is very undervalued by a lot of people, and I think it's going to be an exciting episode too.
I agree. So let's talk a little bit about Teresa and how did we even meet, actually?
I think I reached out to you.
So who was the person who connected us? Was it Ashley from Greenbench or?
No, we just made that mutual connection.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is crazy. The world is such a huge and small place at the same time. So, well, I guess welcome to our little podcast and our little room here.
Thanks
and
for
we're
having me.
super excited to have you on. And I guess tell us a little bit about yourself and your studio and all that you do.
Well, like you mentioned, I've been in advertising for some time. I worked at an ad agency for many years and then made the transition to starting my own business. And at first started out as a freelancer, but it organically grew into a virtual studio.
Okay.
And that takes up most of my time. I work with clients locally and nationally.
Okay.
And I'm also an active artist. I've worked in many different mediums.
Oh, wow.
Wood, metal, I've done mosaics, I painted in all mediums, and currently I'm working in ceramics.
Yeah, I creeped on your Instagram a little bit, and I saw some of the beautiful ceramic work that you did. I don't know if they're cups or I'm very lowbrow when it comes to art, so I don't have all the art language. But are those mugs or cups or vases, or what are those things that you're making?
The ones that you probably saw most recently, they're what I call tumblers. And they're just smaller pieces because my price points are a little bit higher because I do surface technique on it.
Okay.
A technique called sgraffito, and I'm also moving into kind of painting.
Okay.
So it's very time intensive. So some of my tumblers kind of reflect elements of I do wall pieces, large wall pieces too. So they kind of pull elements from those wall pieces. So somebody that may not be able to obtain a wall piece, they can have a smaller piece.
Okay. Yeah, I was on your Instagram account and I was looking. I was like, oh man, this stuff looks pretty nice. It looks pretty professional. But Jake and I were talking about the virtual studio and we're like, what is that? So tell us what that is.
Sure. So when I first started my business, it's been 11 years now. And when I first started it, it was, at the time, everybody thought of an agency as a brick and mortar location, big conference room, a lot of people in, the agency. And I was breaking out of that boundary and developed what I called a virtual, because everything's done online. And most of the time, if I meet with clients, I go to them and meet with them. So I really didn't need the expense of a brick and mortar. So I positioned myself where I was a virtual studio, so I didn't have a lot of the overhead. So I had the same quality of work as an ad agency, but my costs were less because I didn't have the overhead.
Did you ever have any difficulty convincing clients that that was a good way to do it? Or?
It took a while, but strangely enough, that's where the trend was and it started heading to. So now I've met with a lot of different agencies like myself that have started up that way, and a lot of people work remote.
So you were just a little bit ahead of the time.
Teresa's kind of a trailblazer here.
You guys said it. I wouldn't say that.
Oh my God.
What was it like to transition from working for someone else at the ad agency to having your own business?
You know what? It was perfect for me, my personality. I really liked the freedom of it. I liked the being able to work in a different environment every day if I wanted to, and being creative. That really fueled my creativity. I remember sitting in a coffee house one time and just getting inspired by somebody that was sitting there with a kid's keyboard writing a music, and just watching him help inspire me whatever I was working on that day. So that's what I really like, is the flexibility.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I guess I never thought about that. Just like going to a public place and soaking up the energy from other people and seeing the environment and what's going on and kind of the mood of the situation. It can inspire. That's actually pretty cool.
Well, I've even met clients that way, oddly enough.
Really?
Yeah, because you hear people's conversations, and I've heard a couple people sometimes, I'm looking for this, and it was exactly what I do. So you just, hey, hate to interrupt, but here's my business card. Give me a call. And so,
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder if that happens a lot, actually. If all these coffee places are kind of like low-key, like networking events that like are happening. People are just there to have coffee, but really they're also there to get business. And
Oh, definitely. I think even here, when I've gone to different coffee places, I've heard people planning even events that are happening here. So it's kind of exciting because you get like the insider scoop.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people in St. Pete who work from home or work from like a place like the Station House. They just rent an office by the hour because they just don't want to be tied to a fixed office, and you have to come in every day. And in my past life, I worked from home for 9 months, and I personally didn't like it. I don't know why. It just wasn't my thing. But I was doing it wrong, I think. I wasn't going to coffee shops. I wasn't like going outside of my house. I was just sitting at home and hanging out with my fridge. And it was a terrible situation. So I had to get out of that. Do we have any other questions about Teresa's background?
Well, speaking of St. Pete, you started the business in Kansas first, right? What was it like to move, locations? Probably easy since it was virtual, or?
Well, interesting enough. So I came from Kansas City, which a lot of people don't know is a very big creative hub. So a lot of entrepreneurs and creatives live and work there. So, and it's a big ad town too. So a lot of advertising there in Kansas City. And so when I decided to move to St. Pete, and I moved here for my art business, because I found a lot of my buyers are down here, and the galleries that I sell from are down here. So when I moved here, it was a little bit of a culture shock, from Midwest to East Coast. There is a difference.
I'm originally from Wisconsin, and when I moved down here to Florida, it definitely was a transition. It's a little bit different here than it is there.
So you're a Midwest guy, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
For sure.
What year did you move to St. Pete?
I moved here 2017 in May.
Okay. So it was still like a happening place. You didn't move here when it was dead and like...
No, but I've heard the stories.
Like dust was like rolling down Central Avenue and like all the windows were boarded. Okay, maybe it wasn't like that depressing. But like I think 2007, 8, 9, those were rough for St. Pete. That's when the economy went to you know what, and people were closing their businesses down, and St. Pete was a very, very lonely and empty downtown. And so you moved at a good time, not when we were struggling to make it. So, well, that's pretty exciting, actually. So, have you ever met someone who lives here and says, "I hate living here"?
I've only seen that online.
Okay,
So
online.
not in person.
Oh,
but
you're right, on Facebook.
On Facebook,
Right.
or comments on different things.
Yes.
You hear a lot of negativity, but I think, that's the place, I guess, where people put a lot of the negativity.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true. You're right. You're right. I've seen negative comments online, but never heard someone say it in person. Very interesting. So should we talk about branding and so let's get into it and talk what is it? What does branding mean to you?
Well, that's a good question. I also teach a branding class for artists.
Oh.
Well, we're gonna learn something.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready. Teach us.
So part of the thing that I teach them is, so most people think of branding as just a logo.
Right.
And branding is much more.
Way more.
Than a logo.
Right.
Yeah, as you know. So let's talk a little bit of a logo. A
Yeah.
logo is basically, in essence, a metaphorical stamp of your business that clarifies your services or product or business in general. So a good logo would be something where somebody can look at just the logo, maybe never seen it before, and have a rough understanding of what your business is. And so the logo is maybe, the first element of it, but branding is the foundation of everything you build off of. So it could be, colors and fonts. It really is, branding is a visual representation of your business, a first impression that basically invokes an emotion. So people, when they view it, they invoke emotion where, let's say you look at Nike. Well, when I look at Nike, I want to go do something athletic,
Right.
or it feels empowering to me.
Right.
So different brands represent, different things like that.
Right. And I think that people just assume that the swoosh, the Nike swoosh, immediately started communicating all of these messages and feelings and ideas that they now have of Nike. But that's not actually true. When it just started out, it was just a swoosh. Nike had to engage in all these practices, marketing, pretty much like promotions and practices, to build the personality and the voice and the mission and the vision behind that brand. Had they not done that, then it would just be essentially a check mark.
Exactly.
So to me, that's what branding is. It's all of the little pieces behind the scenes that you are doing to communicate to the outside world. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is why we do it. And we find out that a lot of people just stop at the logo. Actually, they stop at the business card. They get the logo and the business card, and it's like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm branded. Is that your experience, or?
The clients I tend to work with have more of an understanding of it and an appreciation for branding and the importance of it. So normally when they pull me in, it's because they've went the different routes before where they use 99 designs, for $100 you can get a logo.
Right.
And then they see that, well, I'm not getting any traction. I'm not being able to make sales, or people have the wrong impression of my business.
Right.
And then they come to me and they don't, how do I fix this? I just had a recent client come to me, and they have this great service product that they want to roll out across the country, and it hasn't gotten much traction yet. And the first thing I told them, they had an established logo, and I'm like, you need a new logo. We need to rebrand you. This is not targeting who you want to target. It needs to reflect your business a little bit more. So he agreed, and, we're starting from scratch and rebuilding it. And every client that I've done that for, So another part of my business is I want to make sure that I get results for my clients. I
Right.
want them to see return of investment.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of my past clients, there's actual trackable results from doing this.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that branding is also like defining your target market and then segmenting your target market into your target audiences and saying, okay, this is the person I'm talking to. This is like, what kind of conversation do I need to have with this person? What type of messages and symbols and colors are going to really resonate with that person? And a lot of people just say, well, I like color pink. I just want a pink logo. But then you come to realize that pink doesn't really communicate what their business stands for. And how do you overcome convincing someone that their original idea is not really the best for their logo?
That is the hardest thing
Right. So
to
how
do.
does that happen?
Because a lot of times, a business can be an extension of themselves.
Right.
It's their baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's, they created this business,
Right.
and it's part of who they are. And so it's approaching it with empathy and, giving them facts and explaining why this is the better way, and showing them past examples helps too, ease their mind so they know that I have the experience and, I've done this for this client or whatever. And then... So I'm going to use an example.
Okay.
So I had this one client. It was a consignment client where they developed pop-up consignment sales for children's clothes and stuff. When they originally came to me, they had a really bad logo.
Okay.
And everything was pink.
Right. 'Cause everyone loves pink.
Yeah, kids, pink,
Right.
And so I didn't rebrand them. They were really set on the logo. So sometimes in creative endeavors, you have to know when to just, they're the decision makers.
Right.
So if they don't want to do it, that's fine. Well, they stuck with the logo. I rebranded them so it was less pink, more other hues, and, a little softer, not so in your face.
Right.
And they started seeing traction. And after a few years down the road, then they went back to the logo and they decided to redo it. So sometimes it takes a little seeing how other things work
for the business or a client to trust you and say, okay, I see that you understand what I should be doing. That's I guess that's kind of been our experience too. Usually when someone approaches us, they tell us that they love their logo. Well, I think people are in one of the two buckets. They either hate their logo or they love their logo. There's no one ever in the middle like, I'm kind of okay with it.
There's the group of people that just think it doesn't matter too. Like
Right.
maybe they know their logo isn't great or perfect, but they just think it's not going to have an impact. And they don't realize that every other thing that they do in marketing or advertising or whatever they're doing, like it has an impact on it. Like people are seeing that logo.
Yeah. We not long ago, we had someone approach us, wanted to rebrand. And we went through the whole exercise of, trying to, we're pitching to the person, like, you need a new logo, you need a slogan, you need, all of these things. And the person was in love with it. And then a couple of days passed, the person sent us like a Word document and said, look, I created my own logo. And we're like, okay. What do we do here? Like, we can't.
Yeah.
That is the level of appreciation that person has for logos and branding, and like I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah, I think at that point either we didn't do a good enough job explaining its importance, or they just weren't gonna. It just wasn't gonna happen anyways. So.
Yeah, it's very crazy. I was recently reading a book. It was some type of branding book, and in it the author talked about how not having a logo or a brand is like being a person without a face. Like, imagine like if all of us here had no faces. How would we recognize each other? I guess by voice, but then your voice is part of your branding too.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was very interesting. So I always try to tell clients, if you have no logo, no branding, your business essentially has no face,
Pretty much. Yeah.
which I guess is a lot to swallow, especially if someone has been in business for a while and they're like, what do you mean I don't have a face? Like, I have customers, I have business, people find me. And it's like, okay, but more people could be finding you. And so it's very interesting. Let's see, what else should we talk about?
I think we talked about a little bit developing a brand, but I don't know if there's anything else that we can mention there.
Yeah, like, do you think that people can do it on their own? Like, if I am a small cupcake shop, can I do my branding on my own, or should I always seek outside help? And I should say that I don't have any marketing or branding experience. I'm just really good at making cupcakes.
Well, thanks for clarifying. So I would say you wouldn't hire a butcher to cut your hair.
Fact.
So the same is true in creating a logo. So there's more to creating a logo than making something look good.
Okay, true.
So colors. So I tend to explain to my clients, branding is about sociology. It's about psychology.
Mm-hmm.
It's, picking colors that evokes the emotion that is good for your brand or will entice your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Certain imagery or shapes are going to invoke an emotion. It's a lot about empathy
Mm-hmm.
and touching somebody in a way to motivate them to want to seek you out.
Right.
So if somebody so let's say you put all this money into an ad budget on Facebook and your logo's on there and your graphics and everything, which is your brand,
Right.
is on there, and it's not invoking that emotion, you're not going to get a response. So your assumption may be those ad buys are bad, but really it's not. It's your brand.
Yeah. It's essentially affecting the performance of your ads, and you are assuming that you could assume that you need better ads, but really you just need a better logo.
Or more likely, you assume that Facebook isn't a good advertising platform. You
Right,
stop
exactly.
advertising there,
Altogether.
and then you've lost one of the biggest places that maybe you could be advertising because you have a misconception about what's going on with your campaign.
Exactly.
That's true. That's true. So what is your process like when someone comes to you and they're like, okay, Teresa, I'm opening a new business. I need to brand myself. So how do you explain the journey that you take them on?
Sure. So it's a fun part for me because I'm my personality type is an explorer and
Okay.
like curiosity. So it's like my favorite part.
Mm.
And I do this with any level of creative work that I do is I do the research first, which not everybody does. I have a questionnaire that I ask them. I ask them a lot of questions about their business and the environment of their business. How's the office life? How does it feel?
Mm.
Also good for me to understand the personality of the owner.
Okay.
And how they work, and then getting into their business, and then getting into their target audience, and then looking into their competitors and seeing what they're doing and what's working for them and what's not. And then looking in the overall market in the area. If they're a national client, then I need to look nationally. If they're
True.
local, I need to look locally. And then once I understand that, I start working on concepts, and I always start in black versions of concepts, and I always explain to them because any logo looks good in color. And
But the true test,
as you know, is if it looks great in one color, it's going to look excellent in color.
Right.
So, so I start there. We go through several rounds of revisions. And then once that black version is approved, then we move to color options. And then I provide several color options for them. And there may be some revisions there as well. And then I produce final files. And that's for print, for digital, and just provide all the different file types for them.
Okay. Yeah. Do you ever find it that some people have a tough time choosing when they see something in black and white and they want to see color before they make a decision? Or
Um, I so I've had some where they really want to tell me what colors they want to choose, and I
right.
just pull them back and, focus on the black and white version.
Mm-hmm.
And y- what I've run into, they usually pick either one where they absolutely love, or there's two of them and they're not sure, but then so then we make some tweaks. So
Mm.
sometimes combining them in a way
Mm-hmm.
helps them where they really fall in love.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess we should talk about the money aspect of it. How much does it cost? And mentioned 99 Designs or even like Upwork. Like you can go and you can buy a logo for $25, but I mean, you get what you pay for. So, how much should a good logo cost?
So it depends too on how many concepts you want to see.
Okay.
Mhm.
So typically, I provide 5 to 6 concepts,
Mhm.
and that's $1,800.
Okay.
And the reason for that is all the work that I said. It's the research.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
looking into that, and also creating and concepting is just as you just can't just poof, it's there.
Right.
It
Like they
takes
don't
time to
see all
develop.
of the
Yeah,
notes that you took, all the sketches that you did, like before you
exactly.
present the 5 options to them.
Yeah,
So
and the 5 or 6 options, there's probably many more logos that I opted not to send them,
right.
but they were part of the process.
Right.
I do offer, lower prices for less concepts, but I don't necessarily recommend them because, if I present you 3 concepts,
Mm-hmm.
there's a chance that you're not going to be happy with one of those and you want to see more, which I'm flexible in producing less first. And if you want to need more, we can do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But usually people go with the $1,800 because that is, a really good package
Mm-hmm.
and typical,
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems very fair for that number of concepts.
Very, and this is something that influences all aspects of business. So you want to spend some money on it and some time and make sure that, it is what you want it to be, because it will be the face of your business. So if you spend $5, you don't want people to know that you spent $5 on your logo and like you didn't really care. Like you went on Fiverr and then you paid someone $5 and they probably just, and I mean, it's even dangerous to go online and do that because they can sometimes copy someone else's logo.
happens all the time.
And then you have a situation on your hands.
Or they've used like stuff that they bought at another website that they include in the logo that prevents it from being trademarked in the future. Like there's all kinds of, caveats with stuff like that.
Yeah, I often tell them, so 99 Designs, and I've run into clients quite a bit where I have gone that route, and they realize that in 99 Designs, a lot of it's stock,
Yeah.
Right.
clip art.
Mm-hmm.
And so they may not know that because, they aren't looking through the stock images, but their audience may think realize that it's clip art. And
Right.
that realization alone cheapens your brand.
Yeah.
And they will think of your business as cheap.
Yes, or a copy of a copy of a copy, and so it just looks very diluted and very, kind of like, well, as a customer, like I can see that you gave up. So it's one of those things like I gave up when you gave up. Like why should I care about a business that doesn't care about themselves and doesn't care about their own image? And so I think it's often very tempting to get blinded by the price points. Like, oh my God, there's $1,800, but there's $5. Like, I can get like so many of these $5 logos for the $1,800. But you have to think about the quality of the $5 logos, the amount of time you're going to spend going back and forth with someone who does a $5 logo, and the risk of encroaching on someone else's logo and breaking, the law and being sued. And so I think that $1,800 is super reasonable, and you really need to, it's an investment. And like if someone is getting married, it's like a big day in their life. It's like, oh, I want to spend $5,000 in my wedding dress. it's kind of like getting the logo. Like you want to spend some serious money on it so everyone can see how amazing your company is.
Mm.
And
I think this is probably a good time to transition into the benefits then.
oh yeah,
Because that's really what you're paying that extra money for. What are you going to get when you spend that extra money? I think we've touched on a few of them,
yeah,
like where it increases the value of all the other stuff you're doing or makes it easier.
yeah, and gives you the opportunity to kind of control your own brand, voice, and personality. You're essentially kind of a little bit in control of your destiny because you're not letting other people define your company from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
When someone comes to you and you go through the exploration journey and you're learning about them, it's I'm assuming it's kind of like a joint effort where they end up learning something about themselves during that process. You teach them that, oh, maybe this is how your customers see you, and they maybe never even thought about that. So I think it's a good kind of like self-discovery process.
Well, what I teach in my branding class is branding as a promise to your customers.
Right.
Also, what they can expect from your product and services. It differentiates you from your competitors,
Mm-hmm.
and it often triggers an emotional response. So
Mm-hmm.
all those together help motivate your client or prospective buyers
Mm-hmm.
to motivate them to seek you out or to, go to your store or
Mm-hmm.
look into that offer that is being presented on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Branding also, so let's say you build a website
Mm-hmm.
or you want to do an ad campaign. Branding is part of that. It's the tone in your message. It's, what's the style of, how you communicate with them? Is it
Mm-hmm.
upbeat and friendly or is it real polished and professional?
Mm-hmm.
And that really depends on your audience as well. So it really falls into all those categories of knowing how to build the rest of your brand
Mm-hmm.
and your campaigns and messages.
Mm-hmm. So it all comes together and it tells one big story. And people know, okay, this is this product or service. This is how it's different from all of the other products and services in its space. And these are the benefits that I'm going to get by consuming this product and service.
Mm-hmm.
And I I don't think that businesses should assume that people can just like look at their product and service and know what that promise is. It's like
Exactly.
it's not like build it they will come type of situation. Like you need to put some work into it.
Well, and I feel like I need to emphasize too that it's important to be cohesive in your
Right.
brand.
The uniform message everywhere. Yes.
Exactly. So your logo may say something, and then
Right.
if your tone and your message is different, it's going to be disjointed and it's not going to be a solid brand.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so that's part of branding is to make sure that it's cohesive and it's, it keeps repeating that same message that you're trying to get through to your audience. And
Yes.
going back to Nike, and they've done that same cohesive message that now all you have to see is that mark and you know exactly what it is.
You
and it
know.
evokes all those emotions because you've been had so much repetition of it that it's
Right.
just second nature now at this point.
Yeah. You know the story.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell you the story and that's what really businesses should be doing, is telling the story, not leaving it up to other people outside of the company to tell the story. And if for example, like your business card shouldn't have a different logo from what your website has, or whatever the case, your packaging should have the same logo as your website so people can recognize it. If I see a chocolate wrapper on the street that someone inappropriately dropped, I should be able to see like, oh, okay, that is that brand. Like I recognize it. But if you have split personalities, then you're just all over the place. It's a hot mess of a situation. So, yeah, that makes sense. I agree. Anything else we should talk about in terms of benefits or?
No, I think one other thing we like to ask everyone is maybe a little bit about how they market themselves.
Oh, yeah. Tell us
you
how
kind of have-
Teresa markets herself.
Yeah.
Well, so I've been in business for a very long time, so a lot of it's networking.
Mhm.
Mhm.
A lot of it's word of mouth, past clients that have been happy with my work. They share it with other people looking for services of the same.
Mhm.
I also do, what I kind of did here, reach out to other marketing firms and ad agencies too, and just introduce myself because a lot of times, I find that knowing each other, we can help support each other with different things as well.
Yeah.
And then, so I don't do a lot of, ad buys myself, just because from my experience, it just hasn't really worked for me, but I do other avenues. I do more guerrilla marketing. So it's more, getting my logo out there, getting that brand out there, and I'm pulling business that way.
And that probably works too with the clients that you're trying to attract. And networking is super powerful. And really, when you're in a business to business, industry, it's all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can have a face to face, then we can definitely establish a relationship, which is in that case probably more powerful than seeing a Facebook ad. So
Exactly.
So you've probably found the secret sauce for you. So.
Well, and I also work with national clients that I have never met before in person.
Wow.
That I've had video conferencing with and, conversations that way. So we're in a new age. So networking has gone to a new level now, too.
I know. It's so crazy. And it's like, it seems like people know you online. And then when you meet them in person, it's like, oh my God, this is so strange. Like, we know each other, but we don't know each other. So it's a very, very a crazy experience. And I'm sure you know that too. And but yeah, I guess you can talk to anyone, anywhere on the planet and feel like you're friends. And you can probably spend your entire life never even meeting that person ever in person and think that you're super close, which is amazing. So, is there anything else, or
is there anything else we should have asked you, or anything else you want to share with people, or did we cover it all?
Oh gosh.
Or if there's nothing else, maybe just tell people where they can find you if they're interested in maybe learning more about, getting a good brand for themselves.
Yeah. So if anybody is interested in branding or even marketing, building your brand, you can visit my website at, www.bella-designs.biz, B-I-Z.
Okay.
And even on my website, I have samples of work and even samples of my fine artwork too.
Yeah, and also in your Instagram, you have some examples of your fine art.
Yes.
And I don't know if you want people to go there. Maybe I'm just a creeper
you
who found you.
Now I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
My Instagram is more of my fine artwork. But,
Okay. And then your website is where they can go see the logos that you have done and all of that stuff.
And my contact information.
Okay. All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us little people here. And
yes, thank you. I think you a lot of great advice for people.
Yes, and this was a lot of fun, and hopefully you had a good time. And
I did. You guys are wonderful.
Thank you so much, and we had fun, and thank you again.
Thanks.
All right.
For everyone listening out there, if you're watching the video, feel free to leave a comment below if you have any, comments or questions about anything we talked about today. Or if you're listening, you can always find us on social media. We're Kapok Marketing pretty much on all the platforms. And I think that's it. With that, we'll have something just as great for you next time.